Hi, welcome to the Town of Granby Youth Service Bureau's YouTube channel and today's presentation, 6 Questions to Save a Life, introducing the Columbia Suicide Prevention Protocol. This is for anybody who wasn't able to join us on November 8th for our Zoom presentation of these materials. So suicide prevention starts in the community. We need to understand that suicide is still one of the leading causes of death among teens. LGBTQIA plus youth are at an even greater risk, but it also impacts all ages, races, religions, and socioeconomic groups. The pandemic has increased the stresses amongst all levels and segments of the population, and really it's vital as a community that we come together and recognize that in Granby, we as community members are where prevention starts. We're the family, the friends, the coaches, the neighbors, bus drivers, custodians, and teachers. Why? Because you're the front line in suicide prevention. It's how a suicidal person is connected to the mental health provider that can help them. That's you. You as the friends, the family, coaches, neighbors are the key to connecting those people because you're going to be the people who notice that somebody is in trouble. How are you going to do that? We're going to do that by learning some of the signs of depression and suicide, and also identifying the myths that we mistakenly believe about suicide that can keep us from helping. So some of the common myths. One is that suicidal people keep their feelings and plans to themselves. But we know that most suicidal people communicate their intent in some way, especially that week prior to them taking an attempt. And why? Because most people don't really want to die. They're just in a place where the pain is so overwhelming and they are so hopeless that they are contemplating doing anything to make it stop, but they don't really want to die. And so they communicate, sometimes in a way that's difficult to understand, that they are hurting because there is that desire. They really are looking for hope. If people talk about killing themselves, it means they're not really going to do that. The fact is that most people who actually attempt suicide have in fact communicated their intentions to kill themselves, even if those communications weren't easily understood. So even though there are some people that may be saying that they want to kill themselves who don't genuinely intend to, we need to focus on the fact that most people who are genuinely feeling like they're going to kill themselves will in fact express that. And so we need to act like all statements of suicidal ideation or intention are real. And we're going to give you the tools to help identify how serious those statements really are. Once a person is suicidal, there's nothing that can be done to prevent them from attempting to kill themselves. As I said before, nothing could be farther from the truth. Suicide is one of the most preventable forms of death because suicidal people don't really want to die. They just want the pain to stop. And by talking to them and attempting to help them, we are giving them hope that maybe something can change. Confronting a person about suicide risks making them angry and increases the chances that they will kill themselves. So as I said before, suicidal people don't really want to die. They want the pain to end. So talking to them about their feelings often gives them that sense of connection and that little bit of hope, and reduces the chance that they're going to actually act on their suicidal thoughts. So as a mental health provider, I have to say that in all the years I've been doing this, and I've worked with many people who have been suicidal, the only anger that I've experienced has not been about talking to them about their suicidal feelings. It's come particularly when working with minors when the degree of their risk was such that confidentiality needed to be broken, and we don't have a choice in who we call. So parents have to be notified, or if you were, when I was working in the school administration had to be notified. And there were times that kids became angry about who was brought into this situation, but they weren't angry about being talked or asked about how they were feeling. So that's just a slight perspective there. So what are some of the signs of somebody being suicidal? So the reason why community prevention is key to saving lives is that community members are the ones who are going to notice changes in their friends, their family, their neighbors. While I wish I could give you a definitive list of what the signs to look for are, there isn't one, but there are common elements to look for. So one, do you know somebody who's who's experienced a traumatic event, somebody who's going through a divorce, someone who's lost a spouse, or a loved one, or a beloved pet. These kinds of things, even the loss of a job, a breakup in a relationship, these things can trigger feelings of suicide. Some of the indirect signs we might notice are depressive behaviors. So a lack of interest in things that they normally would have been interested in, withdrawing from friends and activity, changes in sleep patterns, or, which could be either sleeping too much or not sleeping at all, a drop in grades or work performance, a loss of appetite. They could be listening to very sad music and really kind of focusing on very depressive types of things, changes in the way they dress, organizing possessions and making plans to give valued items away to others. They could be posting about suicide and wishing that they were dead. They could be posting and making links to very depressing suicide-oriented music or drawings. Their writing or art might feature death and hopelessness, and I have gotten many very, very timely referrals from teachers who have noticed this change in their students' artwork or writing. You might notice a decrease in personal hygiene and self-care. Then there are the direct signs. Statements like, I wish I was dead. No one would miss me if I was gone. I can't take it anymore. It's hopeless. Life's hopeless. I just wish I could go to sleep and never wake up. Don't worry. Pretty soon you won't have to worry about me anymore, or won't have to deal with me anymore. Those are indirect signs. And then we have the really direct signs that are, quite frankly, right out there. I'm going to kill myself. I want to die. I can't keep living like this. So when we see the signs, why do we hesitate to ask? So as a society, I can make the blanket statement that we're really uncomfortable about suicide. And so why is that? So first, we're uncomfortable about death. As human beings, we try not to think about the fact that one of the facts of our lives are that we are all going to die. Death is uncomfortable for us to address. But then suicide in particular has some other weight to it. It is culturally rooted in religious beliefs that say suicide is a sin. So even for those of us who might not belong to a religion that says that suicide is a sin, our culture has kind of adopted that this is a sinful act. It's uncomfortable to talk about that. We avoid talking about things like sins, and that, has kind of permeated our thoughts about it. The other is that as a society, we don't, particularly as a mobile society where we don't know our friends, we don't know our neighbors as well. That idea of privacy and feelings being private, is something that we try to respect, right, in our day in and day out communications with people. And when it comes to confronting signs of significant depression and potential suicide, we have to break those barriers and talk to people that we might not be close enough to in a normal conversation to be talking about deep feelings with. We need to break that barrier. And we need to ask questions. And then the third big thing is that many of us hesitate to ask because, oh my gosh, we don't know what to do if they say yes. If I am depressed, I am suicidal, oh my gosh, what do I do? And there's this sense of burden that now it's your job to make them feel better. And today's presentation is to blow that one out of the water. It is not your job to fix this, but you can be the ever so important bridge to getting them the help that they need. So to save a life, we have to have the courage to recognize the signs and to ask the questions. So the Columbia Protocol was developed in 2012 out of Columbia University with collaboration with a number of other universities and organizations. And it is, as I had said earlier, now the gold standard in suicide prevention when it comes to screening for clinical trials. And it's also being used by the armed forces as one of their screening tools, and also being used by first responders, coaches, teachers, families, and friends across the nation. It's simple, it's effective. Anybody can learn to ask these 6 questions and learn to do what to do with the answers that they get. So here are the 6 questions, and it's a rating scale. So the first question, and so if you can do a training on this, and we can provide training to first responders or to different groups. It really comes down to practicing saying these questions out loud in a way that is not robotic, but is asking the question exactly as they're written. Okay. So you can preface this by, I'm concerned you've been having a conversation, right? How you doing? What's going on? I've noticed some changes. I'm worried about you. You seem really down. Things at work haven't been going well, or I know you lost your mother, blah, 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 blah. So then we get to the point where we've identified that we have some concerns about this person. The responses to the questions that they've given us have triggered. They might, some of those indirect signs. Yeah, it's too much. I'm just overwhelmed. I don't think I can keep going on like this. So then you can say, I'm worried about you. I'm going to ask you some questions because I'm really worried about you, and I want to make sure that everything's going to be okay here, and that I can help you, with this. So, I want to ask you, have you wished you were dead, or wished you could go to sleep and not wake up in the last couple of months? Yes or no, check off. Have you actually had any thoughts about killing yourself? Okay, so now, if we get a yes to question 2, we're going to go on to 3, 4, 5, and 6. If they say, if they answer yes to, yeah, I have. I wished I could dead. I wish I was dead. I just wish I would go to sleep and not wake up again. All right, that is a sign of significant and acute depression, but it doesn't mean they're actively suicidal. However, have you actually had thoughts about killing yourself? We're asking if they're considering acting on that wish, right? Many of us have wished I could just go to sleep and not wake up tomorrow, right? But in delving deeper into what that means, we really didn't want to die, right? We're just feeling overwhelmed, blah, 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 blah. So question 2 is the really important one here. So if we go and we get a yes to question 2, we're going to go on to question 3. Have you thought about how you might do that? Okay. And then, have you had any intention of acting on that, of killing yourself, as opposed to you having the thoughts, but you definitely wouldn't act on them? It's really important, because a lot of people might get to the point where they think they might kill themselves, think about it, but then when it comes to actually thinking about acting on it, no, I could never do that, right? So if we get a yes to question 4, we are now in the high risk category. All right, we're going to talk about that. If we've only gotten a yes to number 1 and 2, but then we don't get anything else, we're going to stay in that low to moderate risk. But if we get a yes to number 4, we're in high risk. Then we're going to go, have you started to work out or worked out the details of how you're going to kill yourself? Do you intend to carry out your plan? They say yes to this one, we're confirming this person is at super high risk. And when I'm talking about high risk, we're talking about someone who cannot be left alone, someone that we need to pull out all the stops and connect them with emergency safety care, psychiatric safety care. All right. So if we get a yes to 4 and we get a yes to 5, we are going to be connecting this person one way or another to a suicide hotline, to calling 911, to connecting them with an ambulance, something like that, right? And then number 6. So number 6, we ask always, right? Sometimes we just ask question 1 and 2. We might skip 3, 4, and 5. If the answer to number 2 is no, we will then skip to number 6, right? If the answer to number 2 is yes, we're going to ask 3, 4, and 5. So number 6, have you done anything or started to do anything or prepared to do anything to end your life? All right. And again, if the answer is yes, they're high risk. If the answer is no, they stay in that low to moderate risk, right? So the way this could work is, here's an example. I'm concerned about Joe. And I'm like, Joe, have you wished you were dead or wished you could go to sleep and not wake up? If Joe says no, good. All right. I'm going to ask the second question anyways, because that's this. Have you actually had any thought about killing yourself? Joe says no. Great. I'm going to skip 3, 4, and 5 and go, have you done anything or started to do anything or prepared to do anything to end your life? Joe says no. All right, you can go, I'm so glad, Joe, because I know we were talking and you were saying how depressed you were and how lost you felt since Becky passed away. I'm really, really relieved to hear, that you're not planning to harm yourself. But, I am worried about you. And, we're going to talk specifically about what do we do with somebody who's at this moderate or, low risk. All right. Another scenario, talking to Joe again, but it goes like this. Have you wished you were dead or wished you could go to sleep and not wake up? Yeah, Emery, sometimes I had this past month. It's just really overwhelming. Have you actually had any thoughts about killing yourself, Joe? Yeah, Marie, I have. Like, wow, Joe, I'm worried about you, man. Have you thought about how you might do that? Yeah, I had some ideas. Have you had any intention on acting on those thoughts, Joe, of killing yourself, as opposed to, you have those thoughts, but you definitely wouldn't act on them? I don't know, I might act on them. Have you started to work out, or have you worked out the details of how you'd kill yourself? Do you intend to carry out this plan? I'm not sure. Okay, what have I got here, right? I've got somebody who's at high risk. He hasn't answered yes to both of those questions, but I'm going to go to 6 anyways. It's like, well, Joe, have you done anything or started to do anything or prepared to do anything to end your life? No, not yet, but those thoughts. All right, he's still at high risk. Okay, I need to get him connected to help. So we go right down here. What do we do with the results? Any yes indicates that somebody should seek a behavioral health referral. We'll talk about what that means. However, if the answer to 4, 5, or 6 is yes, not all of them, but just one, that person needs immediate help. So right here these cards are downloadable, and there's an app for your phone, and we've got links to it. It means that we need immediate help. That means calling the emergency room or calling the national suicide hotlines, calling 911, and we need to stay with that person until they can be evaluated. All right. So any yes indicates that this person is hurting and we should make a connection for them. But a yes to 4, 5, or 6, those red or a pinkish colored ones, means that we have to stay with that person and seek immediate help. All right, so as we just said, and as the card tells us, if someone's at high risk, a yes to any of the pink coded questions, it's time to call 911 or get them to emergency psychiatric services, call us to national hotlines, or in Connecticut, we can call 211 and get them evaluated by a suicide crisis response hotline. That's what we want to do. And we want to stay with them until that evaluation has been done. And it very well may lead and mean that they're going to be going by ambulance to the emergency room. Okay. If the person is a minor, and so any of you teachers or coaches who are listening to this, and we've gone through this, and you ask these questions to that kid, there is not an age range on suicide. I wish there was, but kids as young as 7 and 8 have killed themselves. All right, it's not common, but it can happen. So you ask. If the person is a minor, their parents have to be called, right? You stay with the child until the parent arrives. You share with the parent what the child has responded and that the recommendation would be for them to take them to be evaluated. Children are somewhat different from adults in that we can pass the responsibility on to the parent for keeping that child safe and protected until they get help. All right, it's the parent's responsibility. It rarely happens, but there are parents that won't act on things, and that can get concerning. A suicidal child and parents refusing to seek treatment can be grounds for a DCF referral. Let's just hope that that does not happen. But the parent does have the right to determine what they need to do, and it becomes their responsibility for keeping that child safe. And you have done your due diligence by staying with that child until the parent has arrived. If you are a coach or a teacher, or if this suicidal statement is made while a child is in school, school administrators need to be informed as well. All right, and that is, they will have their protocols for a suicidal student. If we're lucky, many schools across the country actually are beginning to use the Columbia Protocol as their screening tool. So, you may receive training in schools. I don't know what screening tool Granby is using right now, but anyways, letting them know is important and really is a must if the child is in school, because they're responsible for that child's safety at school or in after school activities. So for those at lesser risk, the ones that we got just a couple of yeses or a yes in those yellow areas, we want to share other resources for them. We want to continue building that hope, right? So go back to Joe. It's like, Joe, I'm really glad that you're not feeling like killing yourself, but you're struggling, and I really think you might want to talk to somebody. And I know we've got some resources in town, and I know you're really active at church. Have you considered talking to Pastor John? So what are some of the things that we can refer? So as I said, if they have a connection with a church or a community group, you can ask, if depending on how well you know somebody, is there somebody in your family that you'd be comfortable talking to? Is you have a cousin, a brother, a sister, somebody that you could share how much you're struggling, depending what there are. It's like I know there are grief groups. Have you considered maybe even just one of the online ones? Just connecting them, and reminding them that there are options out there. Obviously, in Granby, one of the things that we offer is the Youth Service Bureau. We work with kids up through the age of 18, so we can be a support for kids in those age ranges. But there are other, as I said, with 211, there are other counselors and private counselors in the community. We can look for those kinds of connections. And we're also, again, we're offering hope, and we're offering that just caring connection, and that you believe that they can find resources that will help them feel better. So once they're safe, it's also time to think about what's going to happen when we return home. And so this is kind of backtracking to those people that were at high risk, and maybe we called 911 and they went into the emergency room, and they're going to do a 72-hour psychiatric hold while they evaluate their risk factors and look at things. One of the things I want to end on is that the research is really clear. The easier it is for a suicidal person to access a lethal means of suicide, the greater the chance is that they will actually commit suicide in a moment of desperation. Someone can feel like they want to end their life, right, in that moment. And if there's no immediate access to a way to kill themselves, every moment between that I need to kill myself and access to a means is a moment for them to reconsider. Obviously, one of the most lethal means of committing suicide in our country are firearms. And so we want to, and this is not about gun control, this is specifically about if you know that someone who is suicidal has access to guns in their home, it's important to talk to their family members about making that not accessible while they are actively suicidal. Changing the lock on a gun safe. Some communities, giving the guns to have a neighbor take the lock safe. A grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, whatever, somebody else having them. The other things are look at easily accessible drugs that could be overdosed on. If you've got, a couple of prescriptions of OxyContin or something like that from a back surgery in the cabinet, get rid of them for the time being. And poison, I don't know, rat poison out in the, in the barn, just make it harder to access those. It is in an instant. Someone can pick up a gun, a loaded gun, and in an instant take their life. Other things take more time, and that time allows the second thoughts, I guess is the word that I want. So it's very important to think about means and limiting means, specifically for those people who are actively suicidal. Again, for those at mild or moderate risk, we want to let them know we care. We want to let them know that there are resources, and let parents and guardians know that there are different resources. As I said, just a reiteration, schools, depending on our role, they may need to know. And we, let them know about resources, ongoing, worst case scenario, if there's not anybody that they can think of, clergy or local counseling agents or senior centers or youth service bureaus, the 2-in-1 system can sometimes do a pretty good job of connecting people to resources that they can afford and that they can access. And one of the things we have in today's day and age is there are a lot of online resources. They weren't resources 10 or 15 years ago. And man, the pandemic, if it's done nothing else, it has increased our ability to access services online. So this is all about hope. Suicidal thinking is about hopelessness and pain. By listening, seeing the signs, and asking, we're already offering human connection and hope, and we reinforce that by sharing resources and expressing the confidence and support that things are going to get better, and that you believe that there is hope for a better and brighter future. So how do I remember the questions? This is easy. You can use this link that's on here, write it down. I guess you can't click on it because this is on YouTube, but you can also download the Columbia Protocol on the App Store, Apple App Store, or on Google Play. It's free. All right. You can go online, just Google the Columbia Protocol and find their free downloadables. You can fold them up, stick them in your wallet, so you can always have them in case you need them. So I really thank you for taking this hour to listen. Please let friends and family know that we will continue to have this available on our YouTube channel. They'll be able to find a link to it on the Town of Granby website on the Youth Services page. This presentation is also free and can be provided in person to any local group that wants it. Scouts, a teen group, board meeting, whatever. It's really important, and you can contact me and we'll set up a time at your convenience to meet with your group and go through it one-on-one live. It's kind of nice live because we can actually get some conversations and questions, but it's free, and I really hope you can pass this on and encourage other people to listen and learn about this and be comfortable with this, because again, asking these questions can save a life. Suicide is the most preventable form of death out there. All right. Thank you very much. I'll leave you with the questions. Take care.